It's my great pleasure to introduce the moderator for today's discussion, Ed Swallow, Vice President of Verios, a division of the Aerospace Corporation. Swallow joined the organization in May 2015 and directs all civil and commercial business, including holding responsibility for contracts over $80 million annually with key customers such as NASA and NOAA. Swallow is also a STEM education leader and for the past 10 years has served as chairman of the STEM Workforce Division of the National Defense Industrial Association, NDIA. Ed is also chairman of our Washington Exec STEM Council and has played a critical role in the success of all three of our K-12 STEM symposiums. Ed will moderate our final panel entitled Opportunities in STEM. Ed?
Great, thank you very much. If you hadn't heard that one earlier today, if you did, I apologize. You know, it's kind of interesting. I actually have listened to a couple of the other speakers earlier today, and, you know, when Dr. Magnus was talking about her background, I'm sitting there going, oh, yeah, you know, very similar careers. I got that, you know, both studied physics and then went into electrical engineering and then went into the space program. And, yeah, except for that astronaut thing, very similar careers. But I got to work on the ground system side, and which kind of prepared me for my current position. I've been a resident of Fairfax County now for 18 years, and I'm really happy to bring this panel to you today because it's really an opportunity to talk about STEM opportunities and to talk about how people can really get involved and engaged. And how you can pursue a career effectively for those of you students in the audience. And so what we wanted to do, and I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. Quite frankly, when people read my bio, I get embarrassed. So I don't want them to be any more embarrassed than they need to be. So what I'd like to do is ask our first panel member, Kritika Singh, who is a senior at Thomas Jefferson High School and the CEO of Malaria Free World. So if you didn't stop by our booth earlier, I encourage you to go by after this panel. So Kritika, over to you.
Thank you, Ed. My name is Kritika Singh, and as Ed mentioned, I'm a senior at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. Oh, sorry. Mic's not on. Yeah. Is this working? Can everyone hear me? Okay, awesome. So I am also a senior at TJ, as I mentioned. I am the founder of Malaria Free World. We're right near the Purple Pod. And I actually founded it 2 years ago, so we've gotten a lot of ground since then, which is really exciting. I'll talk about it more in a bit. But I wanted to start off by introducing how I actually got interested in STEM. And it started right where we all are right now at Naismith. I was here from 3rd grade to 8th grade. And 3rd and 4th grade were kind of adjustment periods for me, getting into a school with a lot of gifted students. In 5th grade, I had this really amazing science teacher who inspired my love for science. And we did biology in 5th grade, and with the same teacher, I did chemistry in 6th grade. So when I did chemistry again in 10th grade at TJ, I remembered all of these things that I'd learned at Naismith as a 6th grader, and that's what spurred me to apply to biochemical internships after my sophomore year. And I got one at a pharma company in Boston, where I worked there after my sophomore year, and I did malaria research, which is what got me into malaria. So now, after I did that internship that summer, I realized that a lot of my friends back home, they really didn't know about malaria. A lot of them asked, why are you doing malaria? It's not really important in the United States right now. Why should we care? So that's why I started Malaria Free World at the end of the summer of my sophomore year. And that was just to go to middle schools and elementary schools and raise awareness about the malaria epidemic, raise some funds for eradication efforts. But as our generation all knows, the power of social media is amazing. So after we got on social media, we've expanded internationally. So now we have branches in India, Nigeria, Sudan, and Egypt, where we conduct international events and get students excited about STEM and about malaria eradication in countries other than the United States. So that's kind of like the advocacy side of what I do. I'm also a very, very passionate STEM malaria researcher. So I did the summer internship after my sophomore year at a pharmaceutical company, so I got to see the drug development process. Last year, I worked further with drug development at the Harvard School of Public Health. And right now, I'm continuing malaria, but on the vaccine side at the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda. And I'm able to do that through the opportunity at TJ for me to do a senior thesis outside of the realm of the labs at TJ. So I'm able to work there for 2.5 days out of 5, and that allows me to conduct research at a very, very high level. And it's really cool, I get to work with human blood. So I'm able to grow my own parasites, also because I'm over 18 and working in a professional BO3 lab. So that's also really cool that I have the opportunity to do that. So I'll be really happy to answer any questions you guys have later on about anything that I do. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. For those of you who caught it, actually, Kritika and I co-starred in a segment that was broadcast on Government Matters on Channel 7 and News Channel 8. Co-starred. I got 30 seconds, she got 3 minutes. But I'm going to call it a co-star anyway. But if you didn't have a chance, it's on YouTube. Watch the first 3 minutes. That's her. That's the good part. Really encourage you to do that. Next up, many of you were probably here for his earlier talk, but we have Dr. Glazer back up here so that we can get some Q&A in here with him as well. Few words that you'd like to say at this point.
Thanks, Ed. So we are very fortunate to have students like Kritika at our school, at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. It's a regional magnet public school which serves Fairfax students who reside in Fairfax County, Arlington County, Loudoun County, Prince William County, and Falls Church City. And most students apply during the 8th grade, and then for people who move into the area, they can apply going into, after their freshman year. TJ offers a robust program. It's a comprehensive high school, but we have a robust program in STEM. So if students want to go very deep, they have the opportunity to do so through any of our 14 research laboratories or through a mentorship program, as Kritika described. So the research programs can be they're in almost every discipline. So we have mobile app and web development, computer systems, robotics, engineering design, quantum physics and optics, analytical chemistry, energy systems, microelectronics, prototyping, biotechnology. How am I doing? I'm probably missing one or two. Anyhow, astronomy. So there's a wide spectrum of opportunity, and for students, they all have a culminating research experience at our school, and we find that really important because we want students to generate questions that are based on knowledge that's unknown. So we want them to pursue, it's really the journey of asking a question and getting your hands wet or getting your brain fried, working really hard to try and explore an unknown question. And we do that through our research labs. And building into that, students are going in depth. So for example, if you want to pursue neuroscience, there was another lab, students can choose a computational end, an electronics end, or a wet lab, dissection pathway. And if you want to do that, the students, by their sophomore year, are taking advanced placement biology or computer science, and by the junior year, then they're taking a more advanced course, whether it be in electronics, DNA science, neuroscience, artificial intelligence. Those are all pathways to lead into advanced research. And since we're a magnet school, we can offer those classes. At a local high school, you might have just a couple of students who are ready to take neuroscience or artificial intelligence or organic chemistry. But at our school, we have a lot of students because it's a focus, and that allows us to run classes in them. TJ is a comprehensive high school, so in addition to offering all students earning an advanced studies diploma in the state of Virginia, they have one of one of their classes or one of their periods is for activities that's not on a graded basis. So we want to encourage student leadership and student innovation, like what Critica is doing, through creating their own activities that may have a sponsor, an adult, as a mentor, but that mentor is just to make sure that they're following protocols, they're not blowing up the school, they're just going in the right direction. The students take the lead, as in Critica's case. And you have this happening throughout the whole school. It's not just in STEM, it could be cultural events, interest groups, whether it's associated with religion or politics, service to other schools where they can give back to their local neighborhood or the neighborhoods around TJ. So TJ as a comprehensive high school has a STEM focused, but on top of that we're interested in STEM in the region. And so we offer extension and outreach programs so that TJ can be available to other students. So for example, at the elementary level, we offer special events such as Science and Tech Extravaganza that's a day-long symposium of hands-on exhibits that's offered at our school in April. We also have a STEM Ambassadors outreach program where our students will volunteer in neighborhood schools when they're running a special program, so that our students serve as role models in their community to share their love of learning with other students to get them excited. The middle school level, in addition to the STEM Ambassadors program, we run a summer camp. It's called the Math Science Technology Institute, the Middle School Science and Technology Institute, and we offer that where students can take 1-week seminar courses in robotics, mobile app web design, Mythbusters, rockets, electronics, 3D printing, engineering disasters, where you get to create things and then destroy them, gross me out science, just lots of fun 1-week inquiry-based workshops just to get kids excited doing some hands-on things in STEM. So we try to support students at different levels through our extension programs, because it's not just about going to TJ, it's more about getting an interest in STEM and sharing that love of learning with students of all different grade levels and giving back to the community and having a sense of social responsibility. And we certainly see that in the work that Critica is doing.
Thank you very much. Our third panelist today is Scott Sedar. He's the Program Manager for Technology and Engineering Education and STEAM Integration. So before he goes too far, he's going to have to explain STEAM to everybody here, and then talk a little bit about what Fairfax County Public Schools are doing.
Sure. Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that. So Fairfax County Public Schools utilizes STEAM rather than STEM, integrating the arts for the creativity and innovation aspect. So we believe that if you combine excellence in STEM education with the creativity and innovation that arts provides, then you have a whole well-rounded student, and that's why we've chosen STEAM over STEM. We're doing a lot in addition to what Dr. Glazer and Thomas Jefferson is doing. If you look at the statistics across the nation right now, Virginia is actually, the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics says that Virginia is the #1 state for STEM jobs by 2018. Only second to Washington, D.C., which is not a state, but right next door to us. So where are a lot of those STEM jobs? They're in our backyard. Virginia, those jobs are growing. Those STEM-related jobs are growing at twice the rate of non-STEM jobs in our state. Those same jobs are paying almost double that of non-STEM jobs in our state. So we have this huge demand for STEM workforce in our own backyard. Unfortunately, right now, Virginia is graduating less than 28% less than the national average in STEM graduates. So we have a supply and demand issue right now. And it's not a K-12 issue, it's not a Fairfax County issue, it's a K-20, K-job issue. And how do we prepare students, inspire them, engage them to pursue jobs and opportunities in the STEM and STEAM career fields? So within Fairfax County, we're doing a lot now, starting with after-school programs and hopefully infusing more into the day. We have promoted more after-school programs in robotics, such as VEX Robotics, FIRST Robotics, BotBall. at each of the levels, elementary school, middle school, and high school. We're working very closely with business and community partners to develop more cyber patriot and coding after-school programs. Virginia anticipates growing 400,000 new STEM jobs in the next 2 years. 71% of those jobs will have to do with computing. 17% of those jobs will be in traditional engineering. So you see this huge growth, but right now computing is not one of our core subjects that we teach during our school day. So the challenge is, how do we work with the state, how do we work with national standards, and how do we ensure that students are being offered opportunities to learn more in computing, coding, programming, robotics, engineering, so that when they move beyond K-12, they can enter into the workforce or continue their education and pursue these kind of opportunities. We have some great programs that we're hopefully starting off in other schools throughout the county right now. We have a school, a high school, Edison High School, next year will be starting their first Global STEM Challenges program or pathway. It'll be a cohort of students that will be taking their math, science, and engineering courses as a cohort. So no longer will 30 students be taking math and then moving to science and then moving to engineering. They'll take that all as one collaborative cohort for 4.5 hours throughout the day. And that entire program will be based around the National Academy for Engineering and their grand challenges for engineering. So those students will be working on challenges such as how do we provide clean water access to all students, or to all? How do we distribute and produce enough food to feed our growing population? How do we produce enough electricity to meet the world's growing demands? So those are challenges that we're trying to build within that program. We're also trying to change the culture of how we teach in our schools today. So if you think about when you went to school, or if you're in school right now, think about a traditional engineering or a traditional educational model where the teacher stands in front of the class, they provide the information for the students to learn, the student retains that information or memorizes that information, then we test the student to see if they learn the information, and then at the end, perhaps we provide some kind of project or opportunity for them to demonstrate their understanding. And that's a traditional model of education for the last 50 or 60 years. We're trying to change that model so that in the beginning of the project or the beginning of the unit, we're providing them with a problem or a challenge that students need to develop a solution to. And in order to develop the solution or come up with a solution to solve that problem, what content do I need to know as a student to be able to answer this question? And that's driving their educational experience. Just as we heard here, what was driving her educational experience? She had a problem that she wanted to solve and therefore did self-awareness, self-guided learning with the facilitation of her teachers and other mentors. So those are kind of experiences that we're trying to provide for our students K through 12 right now. We couldn't do it without our community and business partners. Many of them are here today, working with individual schools, working with us at a county level, and providing these types of opportunities for students. We're excited about the direction we're going. In the last 12 months at our elementary schools, we have 142 elementary schools in Fairfax County. We're the 10th largest school district in the nation. But we've grown from 6 elementary schools to over 60 elementary schools in the last 12 months that are now doing STEM and STEAM work within innovation labs within their school. That means every student actually has a STEM or STEAM experience every day or every week at their school. Much like you would rotate through music, you would rotate through physical education and the arts. Now students are getting STEM and STEAM-based experiences in their classroom and starting to build that foundational knowledge. So then when we move to the middle school and move to the high school, they have that understanding of not only the content knowledge, but also what we're calling in Fairfax County our portrait of our graduate attributes. Their creativity, their critical thinking skills, how to communicate their ideas, and how to collaborate with others. So we're excited about the movement we're in the direction we're going with Dr. Garza's support and the business and community partners. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. And if you have any questions, we're here to answer for you.
Great. Before I come out in the audience with the microphone, I'm going to start with one question for everybody to take a look at, and then I'm going to come out into the audience here and take some questions. And my first question is, there are a lot of students in the audience, so speaking to the students out there, you know, one of the things that we haven't gotten to in a lot of our conversations today is why. Why be excited or interested in STEM? So speaking to the students in the audience, from your perspectives, why should they be interested in STEM?
So, speaking from a personal experience, I was interested in STEM because I love challenges. When I was little, I used to do Legos, puzzles all the time. So STEM, every day, whatever I do is a challenge. For example, I studied the Plasmodium parasite, which has been around since the dawn of mankind, and we still haven't eradicated malaria. Now, that's a huge challenge. So it's a challenge that we can face every day. It's something new every day. It's something exciting every day. And if I ask any of my friends who are also interested in STEM, it's the same thing where we have fun exploring these challenges, discussing them. It's kind of a camaraderie that we have at TJ where we talk about the challenges that we face. So it's something that's what interests me in STEM. Why others should be interested in it, I think it's because if you love that challenge, if you love going into something that hasn't ever been explored, you listen to the astronaut, they explore space. STEM is just like another space. There's always something new that you can learn, something new that you can discover. So those two are the biggest things why I'm interested in STEM. I think for a lot of other people, like when I do experiments in the lab, I really love doing like pipetting and working with the technology available to me in the lab. That's also really fun, learning all those new techniques, working with high-level mentors, learning from them, like my mentor at NIH. She's always very encouraging with Malaria-Free World, with the research that I'm doing. Working with people who are very passionate about what they do also makes STEM fun. So yeah, those are just a couple of things, especially for me.
So I think for me, I think humans are born curious, right? We look at small children when they travel around the room, trying to learning how to walk, curious, putting different things in their mouth. That's what humans are. We're born to be curious. We're born to be innovative. And I think that's a lot of what STEM is. It's that fun, that engaging, that inspiring opportunity to be innovative. If we look around this room right now and try to think of something in this room that is not engineered, that is 100% natural. Everything we're wearing, we're standing on, we're sitting in, we're looking at, has some kind of engineering component to it that somebody sat down by themselves or in a collaborative team and designed for this purpose. And I think that's kind of the exciting part about STEM and engineering, or how we can either come up with our own ideas or we're collaborative with others to solve problems. And they can be as simple as, the design of the stairs to this room, or as complex as, some of the challenges we've already discussed. So I think that's the exciting part of STEM, and it gets you to solve those problems and be empowered and inspired in what you're doing.
All right, so for students, younger students, I think STEM is fun because it's hands-on. You can get dirty, you break things, you blow things up. I mean, that's awesome. So we have an event. I'm looking at my phone now. I mentioned earlier, but you can schedule this. So is it April 23rd? Oh, thank you. Critica knows more than I do. I'm so glad you're on the stage. So tomorrow's Women in Science and Technology, or TWIST. It's an organization at our school that runs a yearly event. It's all hands-on, where you do these things. Like you create your own, you look at banana DNA or strawberries.
Slime, oobleck.
Yeah, you make your own ice cream. You get to do catapults of, what do you throw? Like, I guess you just make your own catapult. Or you build gumdrop nanotubes. It's just hands-on, and you get to do some crazy stuff. So I think that's what makes it fun. So April 23rd, all day, I think from 10 to 3, is when you should come by our school. And if you have a child, what would you say, about anywhere from 5 to 12, right?
Even older.
A little older. I like it. I mean, anyone. It's free. Come on by. Oh, you could do a licorice DNA strands too, right? Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's all hands-on.
Speaking of TechStrav, Malaria-Free World, so it's just about malaria. So I wanted to bring some more global health awareness to TJ as well. So I started the Global Health Initiative, which is a club at TJ, part of the 8th period activity block. So we actually have a Global Health Initiative booth at TechStrav, and the fun thing that we do is that a lot of viruses are circular. So like, for example, HIV virus is circular. So what we do is we have cookies sugar cookies for kids to decorate to look like the HIV virus. And that's what we do at TechStrap. Similarly, for Malaria-Free World, a fun activity that we do is that we model how the Plasmodium parasite moves in the blood. And we do that with gummy worms and baking soda and vinegar. So they basically coat the gummy worm with baking soda, dump it in red blood vinegar, and see how it moves. So that's also really cool for kids to see. So those are just a couple of the activities that are really exciting that will actually engage kids in STEM, but also in particular what their interests are. Like if they see an HIV virus, they're like, oh, I really like that. I want to study that in the future. So we've inspired them in STEM, but we've also inspired them to go into a disease that needs more researchers in it.
Great, thank you. Before we have a comment, I was going to add one other thing. I have a briefing slide that I use on a regular basis, but it also gets to the why STEM. And I start out by saying, if I asked you to do one thing for me, it's legal, it's moral, it's ethical, and your parents would appreciate it, and I would give you $500,000, how many of you would do it? Graduate from high school, because that's the difference in lifetime earnings between a high school dropout and a high school graduate. Okay, I'm going to ask you to do one more thing. If you do that one thing, again, legal, moral, ethical, your parents would be proud of you, and I will give you $1 million. Would you do it? Get a lot of hands. Graduate from college, because that's the difference in lifetime earnings between a high school graduate and a college graduate. One more thing, and I'll give you another $1 million. Graduate from college with a STEM degree. That's the difference in earnings between an average graduate in STEM and an average graduate in the humanities. To give you an idea, if you take every single basketball player at Division I colleges, all of whom have dreams of getting into the NBA, and a lot of them, you see those NBA salaries, and you hear about $20 million, $50 million, $100 million. But if you take all of the Division I basketball players together, their average lifetime earnings, including all those NBA players, their average lifetime earnings is less than a STEM graduate. So you may be really good at basketball, but on average, across all of the people that are good enough to play Division I ball, you're not going to make as much as a STEM graduate. So that's one of the reasons I talk about why people ought to be in STEM. So we've got a question from the...
Thank you, Mr. Swallow. In fact, when you said why STEM, I actually was thinking why not STEM? I can't imagine why not STEM. So congratulations, Kritika. You have inspiring many. In fact, I was just thinking about this morning, malaria. My dad came down with malaria. This was decades ago, and he was really sick, and we were all really, really sad about his illness, and it was multiple days long process. So thank you for what you're doing, because it's making a huge difference, and how lucky for you to have preceptors and mentors like seated on the desk. I'm myself in school right now. I can't stop learning because it's so exciting, so I hope it inspires everyone, each one of you, to continue to go on and learn more science and math. So thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't know if she's related to you or not, but you can pay her $1 later for the... Oh, here we go. We've got a question right over here.
Thank you. When will STEM rotation be available in all schools, all elementary schools?
Nothing like a tough question to give to Scott.
I agree with you 100%. We're ready for it, and we're trying. We are a grassroots approach. So we start with teachers that are interested in teaching this way. We provide professional development for teachers that are interested in teaching this way. And we're trying to start with the infrastructure. So how do we design a room? How do we buy the resources and provide teachers the training so that they can go in and teach in this kind of environment effectively? So that's a terrible answer, but as soon as possible, but not quick enough.
So I am related to Kritika, but this is an unrelated question. So I think it's the encouragement that kids like Kritika and other STEM students get from their educators that really helps them go to the next level. whether she was here at Naismith with Carol and Ken and all the other teachers here, or whether it's Dr. Glazer inspiring her to start Global Health Initiative or include other people to make faster progress in what her endeavors were. I think it's the encouragement that makes a huge difference, and their involvement too. Just the other day I heard from Kritika that Dr. Glazer brought in how many pounds of jelly beans in school to celebrate, with the kids. I think that the inclusion of administrators and teachers with students makes a huge difference.
Great, thank you. Would you care to comment?
Thank you. So in all seriousness, I think, as I mentioned in my earlier talk, I think so giving students experiences and making sure they have experiences whether they're at the school or outside the school, because Kritika's done most of her stuff outside the school. But it's a lot of our own development is through the relationships that we have with other people. So the more we are connected to nurture, as educators, it's our interest. We want to nurture the growth in our students and their interest. So I think relationships plays an incredible role in helping students cultivate a continued interest in any subject area, whether it's STEM or not. And I think where it's really crucial is where there are shortfalls. There are underrepresented minorities, economically disadvantaged students who don't have, may not have mentors or advocates, and that's kind of our own public responsibility to try and encourage, recruit, and get students from all different backgrounds involved in STEM to make it a better workforce and ultimately to improve the lives of other people.
Great. Got it.
What inspired you?
So the question was what inspired me. I think the biggest thing that inspired me when I was researching malaria after my sophomore year was a statistic, which has significantly reduced. So the statistic was that a child dies every minute because of malaria. That kind of struck me because I'd never really heard that much about malaria. Like, of course, as you mentioned before, that you had malaria. My mom has also had malaria multiple times when she was little, but we didn't really ever discuss it because it wasn't that scary for us. But a child dies every minute. Now imagine a 15-year-old sitting in a cubicle surrounded by millions of pharmaceutical executives, and you read the sentence saying, a child dies every minute. That kind of struck me the most, and that's what inspired me to further my goals with malaria eradication strategies. Now, after 2 years, the statistic is one child dies every 90 seconds. So that's much better than one child dies every minute, but it's still terrible. Recently, like 2 weeks ago, I was at Capitol Hill, and I was lobbying congressmen and senators to increase the funding for the President's Malaria Initiative by $200 million. And something else that inspired me a lot was how engaging they were and how receptive they were about malaria eradication. It's something that both sides, both Republicans and Democrats, it's a completely bipartisan issue that is just inspiring to see how it brings people together. And that's something that I aim to do too, to bring people together to fight this disease. So I think that's also something, those two things are the biggest inspirations that I have.
Congratulations on all your achievements, Kritika. I just wanted to ask you what advice you have for like high schoolers, middle schoolers, in terms of, because you mentioned like you did an internship with a pharmaceutical company. So what students can do to build their networks and their relationships so that they can get chances like this, working, as interns in big companies and so on. And then a second question, kind of unrelated, is just on the malaria initiative. If you can talk a little bit about where they are in terms of developing a vaccine.
Yeah. So in regards to the opportunities for summer research especially, my advice would be never take no for an answer. Send out a lot of emails, which is how I got my position. And I think the biggest thing is to show that you're passionate. If you send out a lot of emails, which is common advice, make sure that they're specific and you're actually portraying a passion for the lab or the place that you're applying for. Because if a mentor gets an email that's just very stereotypical, it just says the same thing that you would send to another lab, they'll just put it in the no pile. So just be persistent in where you're applying, and also be passionate about what you apply to. And if someone emails you back with, no, sorry, I don't have space in my lab, just follow up. Say, I'm actually very excited about your lab, and maybe they'll have an opening next summer, or maybe they'll be really happy with the passion that you have for their lab and say, oh, wait, I actually did have a seat in my lab. That happened to me.
Actually, you should just say you're tiny.
Yeah, just say you're small. You'll fit anywhere. Yeah, be like, I'm underage. You don't have to count me as a person. And the second thing about where we are with developing a vaccine. So right now there is a vaccine by GlaxoSmithKline, which is in clinical trials. It's really exciting for the malaria world right now because a vaccine hasn't been attempted against a parasitic infection before. So it's really exciting that we have this vaccine. Unfortunately, it's been reported to be only 30% effective, and if you study the literature, it's actually less effective. So that's primarily because of the challenge of the Plasmodium parasite, as I talked about before, because the parasite is just evolving all the time, so it's really hard to structure a targeted vaccine towards it. But now that we have the infrastructure set up for developing a vaccine and taking it to clinical trials, I'm sure that if we find the perfect mechanism for it, it can happen.
And Scott, along those lines, are there any programs that Fairfax County Public Schools have related to helping students get internships, or are there any resources available to them?
Yes, but I think the advice you just heard is probably the best advice. Be persistent and be specific about your needs and interests, and follow up with companies. We work closely with, especially at our academies and our base schools, work closely with our student services and career specialists that have connections with businesses and community partners. And there's several high schools that have developed relationships with partners where they have internships throughout the year.
Yeah, and so I want to add on two points. So some schools have structured mentorship programs, and I believe, for example, TJ has that, and I believe some of the other Fairfax County academies have that. But every high school has a college and career center, which is an invaluable service that provides information to students about what kind of internships are available in the region, even though we don't run them. And also, the College and Career Center has a system that allows students to do an inventory, a questionnaire, to reflect on what interests them, even if they don't know their career path, to give them an idea of what internships closely align with their strengths and subject area interests. So the College and Career Center at every high school is a great place to start. And usually the counselor can make the introduction if the student doesn't find it directly.
Great, thank you. Another question over here.
So does TJ have any? Sorry, I forgot. Does TJ have any summer camp programs for STEM?
We do. So I mentioned it very briefly. We have a summer program for middle school students, so they're currently in 7th and 8th grade, to explore all different subjects for 1 week at a time. You can choose robotics, mobile app development, 3D printing, engineering disasters, Mythbusters, rockets. There's a huge list, and that is available through the summer school campus. And people can register that through, if they went to our website, you can find out more information, or you can contact me. If you're not in middle school, Fairfax County has a huge number of elementary school programs, either through the Young Scholars Program or through
So we have a Fairfax County STEM camp it's called STEM Camp. It's at Lake Braddock Secondary School this year. It's for students in grades 3 through 5. It's this July. It's a 1-week camp where students will experience three-dimensional modeling, 3D printing, robotics, and then there's also a second camp called Tech Adventure Camp, and that's for students in grades 6 through 8. It will also be held at Lake Braddock Secondary School. And we also work collaboratively with Systemic Solutions, which is working through Northern Virginia Community College to provide camps in cybersecurity and VEX robotics at 3 different locations this summer.
And I think also a lot of the elementary schools, they run summer enrichment programs too.
Right. So a lot of our elementary schools will have a summer camp at their school with young scholars, and sometimes through another branch of funding called CELT. But also, they are school-based, so work specifically with students from that community, and they develop summer curriculum and programming specifically for students in those communities.
So to find out more if in an elementary school is to contact the counselor about those summer camp opportunities that would either be at the existing elementary school or a neighboring elementary school.
Yeah, I want to sign up for that Mythbusters one. I want to go blow some stuff up.
So a lot of anti-malarial pills like Malaron, they have side effects, for example, like hyperactivity. So how do you take those into account when you're designing like vaccines and stuff?
I'm very impressed. No one knows what Malaron is. Good job. Okay, so that's a very good question about how to take side effects into account. So there's like mefloquine also, you get hallucinations after taking it. So for vaccines, since right now we're in clinical trials, so right now the studies are coming in about what side effects the vaccines might have. We don't have a definitive list of what exactly the side effects are yet, but we're still waiting to hear back from the clinical trials. But for any study, any treatment that you have, there are going to be some sort of side effects. Like right now, these are all FDA-approved drugs that they have out there for malaria, and they all have side effects. So the FDA knows that there are these drugs that work, but you have to take those because it's sometimes very difficult to get rid of those without modifying the chemical structure of the actual drug to modify that, because that might decrease the efficacy or decrease the safety levels, which you have to take both of those into account when you're actually making a drug. For vaccine studies, it's a little different because for vaccines, you need to know the efficacy, how safe it will be, whether it's cytotoxic or not. There's a lot more that goes into vaccine studies. You also need to know how it can be transported because vaccines are mostly liquid. They're not in the form of a pill. So there's a lot of things that will go into account for that, but side effects will probably come up, and people will unfortunately just have to deal with them.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to leave it open to the panel to make any closing comments they'd like, and then I've got one last speaker to talk to everybody. Scott?
Sure. So if anybody is interested in more information from Fairfax County Public Schools, you can go to our main website, which is fcps.edu. And you can do /IS/STEAM, STEAM, and that'll take you to our website with my contact information and links to videos and of camps and those kind of things.
And my contact information is simply a Google search for Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. But if you want to know my email, it's principal@tjhsst.edu. I'm more than happy to provide additional information about our school, and my interest is really engaging kids in STEM regardless if they go to our school. So we have all sorts of extension programs I'm happy to tell you more about.
Yep, so contact information for me is you can go to malariafreeworld.org. I also have a lot of business cards outside at the Malaria Free World booth, and if you haven't stopped by yet, I'll be there afterwards. Another last thing that I just wanted to say as a closing remark is we talked about STEAM and we talked about STEM. I just wanted to say that if you have STEM, it's amazing. If you have a great biology, chemistry, physics education, that's great. I mean, you'll do really well. But what will actually make you successful is if you have great people skills and if you have great work with the arts. And that's actually something that I learned from a young age at Naismith, where we were very encouraged to be participating in the humanities programs and everything as well. So it's that whole coalition of the comprehensive education that Dr. Glazer was talking about. So just keep in mind that it's great if you are very interested in STEM. I applaud you for that. But also please be interested in the humanities as well, because it's that whole education that will take you far in life. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce the one person without whom none of this would have happened. He is the CEO of Washington Exec. I consider him a very good friend and a great collaborator in pulling these STEM symposiums together and to making this happen for all of the students. J.D. Kathuria.
I just want to make a couple brief closing comments. Thanks again, Ed, for your nice intro. Thanks again for a great panel. I was going to note that this is our third annual STEM Symposium, that we crossed over 3,000 people. So thank you for everyone for making time on a Saturday. It was interesting when Jerry Connolly spoke earlier, one of the last comments to the local congressman, he said, JD, I can't believe these many people are out on a Saturday for STEM. And he kind of laughed, and he was happy to be here. But he goes to a lot of different events, and it was great to have him, and great to have all the speakers. An event like this isn't possible without a lot of people who are behind the scenes. And first, I want to thank Ed Swallow and his company for being the presenting sponsor. So, Ed, thank you for being part of this. Vencor was our gold sponsor, along with Siemens Government Services. We had an array of volunteers. Evan was great with Thomas Jefferson people, students, in terms of being volunteers. I want to thank Carol Naismith and Ken for opening up their school 3 years in a row. So thank you, Carol, for being nice enough to let everyone walk around and see the different exhibits. I also want to thank my family. It's quite an undertaking to have this sort of a large event once a year. And I want to thank my kids, Jay, Nyla, and Covey, and my wife who are out here and have been very understanding and the evenings and weekends to put an event like this together. So I want to thank everyone for coming. We'll do a survey for everyone afterwards. Love your feedback on how to make this better. Also, there's one last person I want to thank is Bryn Keppen. So Bryn is kind of the program manager for STEM. And so when people say, what should we do, who's exhibiting where, all questions go to Bryn. So Bryn, thank you for all your hard work. And so we've picked the next date already. It's March 18th, 2017. So hope to see everyone there. Thanks again for coming out today, and thanks again for making this a great symposium.